What's up all you gamers? If you're playing as the God of Thunder, but you're not feeling quite as powerful as you should in some of the later content, if you'd like to be a little bit more like this,
it's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
then stay tuned. That's coming up next.
Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 pew. Whee.
What's going on all you gamers? So here we are at the helicarrier, and we're playing as Thor, the mighty Thor, and this build sure makes him feel like that. So one thing I've seen is that a lot of people think you can just completely spec out of defense and go purely into damage. If you're playing all of the early content, like you're just doing it on tier 1s, maybe even 2s, you could probably get away with that. When you start going to the hives and all of the late game content, and soon I believe there's raids and stuff out, you're gonna need a build that is an overall build that works. So that's what I've tried to put together. Now if you like this content, why not give it a like and hit that subscribe and bell icon if you'd like more content from me and all the Xbox and Xbox Series X stuff soon. But for now, how do we get him good? So if you go into your gear just here, and I'll start with the gear because to be perfectly honest that is the main bits that you actually need. Now what I've got on is just over here, when it shows it properly, is the Gauntlet of Ages, and that right there is an absolute beast of a piece of gear. So if you have a little look, it's got Might, Valour and Intensity. Those three stats are majorly what we're going for. Now you'll need a little bit of health and such, so we do have to get that from somewhere, but Might, Valour and Intensity are the three actual integral stats for the build. So if you have a little look, it's got light combo finishers automatically trigger a burst of shock damage in addition to any innate shock damage. Heavy power attacks now deal a burst of additional shock damage, and Priority Drive, 18.8% increased damage when on a priority mission. If you are on a priority mission a lot, that is really good. One of the best perks in the game. If you want something for every mission, hopefully you can roll a different one and get something else in its stead. Just down here we've got our ranged gear, and this is the only one I'm not sure about in the build. I feel like I could get better for this one. So what we've got here is Adept Inspiration, 6.7 chance pinning an enemy grants a willpower burst. That is awful, absolutely awful. Get it off, get something else in its stead, something you want. Hopefully something that builds a bit of damage would be for the best, but anything other than that would definitely be good. What we've got this on is for Mighty Pulse and the Pim's Blessing. So range power attacks deal particle damage, dispersing Pim particles on impact. That's really good. It's one of the better ones. It's a really good idea to have it in your build if you haven't got something else in place of it. And Mighty Impulse, 16% increased stun damage from power attacks. Now if you're wondering why that works in this build, it's because we're going for a lot of stun, a hell of a lot of stun damage. So like I said, you may well be able to get something better than that, but it does definitely work until you've got that. And the main thing is, again, Might, Valour, Intensity. Now just down here, this one's really nice. It's got a bit of resilience, a bit of intensity and a bit of resolve. Those two at the end are really good. Obviously the intensity is there, as we've already said, to basically help us with the status effects and damage. The resolve is really good. You need it for staying alive, as you do with the resilience, but I feel like resolve kind of beats that out a bit. As far as I can see, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe resolve kind of generates a bit more health, resilience generates a little bit more armour on your build. And what we've got for the perks is increase the rate of heroic energy generation while overcharged by 15%, and increase willpower generation while overcharged by 200%. So basically we're going for a build that revolves around being quite overcharged as such, but you feel powerful all the time in this build. And finally, the Belt of the Thunderer. Now this one here, the reason I've got this on, there's an exotic that I've seen someone drop in the game, and it's very similar to this, but it has an extra perk on it. For the life of me, I forgot what it is, but it's either an extra bit of regeneration to the heroic or an extra bit of damage. I think it's regeneration to heroic, if I remember correctly. It's something along those lines. It's the belt that I'm after, so I thought I'd put this on, and then if I am ever lucky enough to get that exotic, I can swap it straight out for this. So with this, we've got might and proficiency. Now, the proficiency is quite good. You do need it a little bit, because if you have a little look up here, it gives you a bit more crit chance. So I'm not fussed about not having the exact perks that I want. That is actually quite good. And it's got might. If it had valor somewhere in the mix or something along those lines, I'd be a little bit happier, but to be perfectly honest, that's not a bad roll. Now, if you go up to the stats here, if you see people and they're telling you to basically get 10,000 heroic, which I've made my character have over 10,000 heroic rating, it's really good. It's really, really powerful. When you're not in your heroic, you're awful. Absolutely awful. Your defense has to suffer, or your melee has to suffer. There's no way you're getting that high without kind of gimping your character as such. Go for an overall build and then try and tweak it as you go. That's what I find is best. So the melee rating could be a little bit higher, but it's 1,439. The heroic over here is 5,719, and the defense I feel is quite nice. It allows you to not get one shot, and we've got almost 15,000 health. I was aiming for around about 14, 15 it would be better, and you've got a little bit of armor. This keeps you alive. In the tougher battles, it keeps you alive. So if we quickly click the other menu for the other stats, you'll see that it's got melee damage 1,220, range damage is really poor. Now if you're looking at this and you're a ranged player and you're like, this ain't for me, don't worry. I'll explain in a minute why you don't need to worry. Honestly, you still do good damage with your range move. You could do more, but this build is more about other things. So if you have a look here, the proficiency just gives us a little bit of crit chance and a little bit of perk chance. The Valor is what gives us basically extra damage on our special moves. The Resolve, as I said, you want quite a bit of that, because what you want to be able to do is have a little bit of health about yourself, so that you're not going to just get one shot in the late game. And the armor, to be perfectly honest, I find that armor doesn't actually matter as much as the health. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, but that's what I've been finding overall. I would rather have really high health and a little bit of armor than really high armor and a little bit of health. Intensity, and this is the defining stat for this, intensity, 61.3%, and status resist 35.7%, but the main thing is that 61%. What that allows you to do is basically get a hell of a lot of the takedown moves. You'll be pressing your, well, on Xbox it's Y and B, I'm not sure what it is on other consoles or PC, but you'll be pressing your takedown moves like very, very often, and they're strong. They do a lot of damage, as does all of your build with this. You could, if possible, I would say try maybe spec a tiny little bit out of your defense, even your ranged, if you could get your range down a tiny little bit and put either of these two up, and you'd be fine. But I wouldn't want my defense too low. I would always want my health probably over the 12,000 mark with a little bit of armor. I actually like it like this. It's going really well, and I'm finding that I can run tougher content, whereas before I was dropping like a fly. So just down here I'm using the Tacticon Exotic, and the reason I'm using that is because basically you can trigger an explosion that deals exploit damage on enemies affected by status, and increase all status damage against any unaffected enemies hit. It's really good for Thor. Gives him a little bit of Valor and Might, nothing to shout about to be perfectly honest, but also if you look, it gives increased damage on enemies affected by status and increased status damage from all attacks. It's pretty much Thor got written, it's got Thor written all over it. Obviously I haven't got the book yet, but from what I've seen this probably will still be best in slot for Thor. Just down here, if you have a little look, what I've got is a double Valor epic. because that just boosts your heroic rating enough. And like I said, basically you'll just want to be using that because it will give you extra damage in your ultimates, which is really good. The Apex Impulse, 11.3% increased stun damage from signature attacks, is really nice. You don't use it too much, but it makes the build more overall. If you want to spec out of that and put it into a damage on something else, I could fully understand. The top one is also quite good because it doesn't actually mean you take quite as much of your intrinsic drain when they're trying to do it to you. But I would honestly spec out of that into something else if I got a better bit. But the main thing was the double valor. And just over here, if you have a little look, we've actually got a Resolve ISO. I would recommend definitely running Resolve ISOs in one of your slots. Getting 3 Resolves on your character really helps them stay in the fight. Like I said, you can make a build that can do a lot more damage, but you're going to go down, and you're going to go down a lot. Whereas with this build, you are doing constant damage, and you're getting your health back, and you're doing big takedown damage. It works really well. So again, you've got a little bit of graviton resistance. That's not bad. If you wanted to change it for something else, would not blame you in the slightest. And heavyweight impulse, 50% increased stun damage from heavy combo finishers. I like that one. I want that on my actual ISO. I'm going to keep that one. If I get a different ISO, I'll have a little look. But that one works well in the build. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to chuck on a little bit of gameplay for you, and I'm just going to show you what this build is roughly about, and that way you can tell if you like it, or if it's not for you, obviously you can move on. But fingers crossed you like it, because I know it definitely helped me leaps and bounds getting past those tougher missions and without dying. Right, so hopefully from that you could see what this build's roughly about. Basically you're going in, you're comboing everything up, you're throwing your hammer, then you're electrifying it, you're doing a lot of moves that are actually blending together, and this is quite an overall build. And if you had look, you were getting your energy back constantly, you were doing your finishers constantly, you were doing your takedowns constantly, you were getting all of your ultimates and special moves really quick. I really enjoy this build, it's the best one I've made so far, that's why I thought I'd bring it out first. So going over the skills, obviously all of these, you've probably got them all unlocked. If you haven't, just make your way through them. That's not a problem. As soon as you're at 50, you've pretty much got them all anyway, so that's all good. Your speciality, now with this, what I do on the support, left hand side one, I take the one that basically gives a damage boost to everyone, because it really helps you take down all of those adds and tougher enemies later on when they've got more health. On the right hand side, now I've been testing this one out, and this one is really good still. So support heroic, basically when Warrior's Fury is active, you have a 50% chance to drop a heroic orb. If you want your specials up a lot more, then you would probably spec into this one, as long as you could do enough damage to get the kills and such. I still think with this build, this one's the better choice. Increase critical attack damage by 25% and critical attack chance by 10%. As an overall build, I still think that's probably the best one, to be perfectly honest. It just helps everyone destroy everything. And we have a way of getting our orbs anyway. So over here for our Assault Heroic, if you have a look on the left hand side, I have gone with this one. A lot of people choose this one there. it is really good. I must admit this one is really good. I still prefer this one. Sons of the Elder Gods. Whirlwind inflicts 20% more damage and applies cryo damage to targets caught in the swirling vortexes. It's really good because it kind of takes a lot of things out of the game. You have a little breather. Other people could go around and get their health regen packs, smash a barrel, get some health pack, do what they need to do. It's a little bit of an interval time, and I really like this. But as I said, if you prefer the triple, go for that. Now over here, what I've got on is this one just here. God Blast inflicts 20% increased damage when triggered while overcharged. We're overcharged a lot. Nigh on most times, wait to use that when you're overcharged. Then you'll get the extra damage. And you've already got the extra damage from your gear, as you saw earlier. So that's on top of that. Now for your ultimate, I'm in two minds still about this because I love both of them. I think late game, you're probably going to go with this. It just helps everyone survive. You do your ultimate, you get a big bit of damage from your ultimate, and everyone's in a big healing area effect. It's really nice. It can save your life, it can save your teammates' life. In hives and such, I'd probably recommend this the most, to be perfectly honest, but all three do work. So this one here does cryo status, so if people are comboing it up, that can work. And this one here is probably my personal favourite, as I love attack damage and stuff, and this one puts them basically in a heated field where they're going to take status damage over and over again, which is fire. But I think for the moment I've gone with that. It's the most all round. Just over on the right here, on heroic again, I have gone with this one, and this is really good. Automatically activate Odin Force as soon as you come back from your Bifrost. So basically it's a given, you haven't got to do anything. Once you've hit your ultimate, you'll come out of it, you're in overcharge. And then as you saw earlier, you're getting your health back a bit, you're in a health pool, and you're doing more damage. It's just, it works really well with this build. Over here in the mastery tree, so on the left hand side, I have gone with increases melee stun damage by 15%. Because if you look, we were doing stun, takedown, stun. It works. This is what I've got on. Just down the middle here, increases damage from combo finishers by 25%. So like you saw in the first bit, basically the light attack was a combo finisher. It gives you extra damage. We've now got extra damage on top of that. On the right hand side, performing a takedown spawns a heroic orb. This is vital in this build. This is one of the most vital things in this build. If you're doing a build about doing takedowns and basically trying to keep up your, well, all of your heroic moves and basically getting as much damage from your ultimates, this right here is key. It is amazing. Chuck it on. Because every time you're doing one of those takedowns, no matter what, it's not down to chance, it's not down to luck, they drop an orb. You pick it up, your bars go up, you get into your ultimates and such much faster. For ranged, what I've put on over here, now I'm in two minds about this still. I really like this one, Impact Explosion, because a lot of times I'm chucking it into the middle of everyone, it's exploding, and then I'll press right trigger and you'll basically be doing more damage on them and more error effect. But critical throw is also really good. So I would say just try the two, see which one you prefer, because obviously you will be doing a bit more damage with this. I was doing it because it's more of a stun build. It worked well as I had it. For the middle tree, I've gone down to here, and ranged attacks with the hammer break through blocking enemies. Because if you're like me, those blocking enemies can be a bit of a pain. If you hit them with this, a lot of the times you'll do that, and then they'll have the pin particle effect on them, and then you can go into something else. On the right hand side here, I've put this one, which is my personal favourite. You're pretty much constantly just going around in an electrical state as you're flying, and it doesn't take any intrinsic off you. That's my favourite. These two, if you have a little look, it kind of drains your intrinsic Odin Force. It does a bit more damage as such, but I prefer this. We want our bar as full as possible, and preferably we'll be in overcharge. Now over here, like I said, it's all about the intrinsic. Defeating enemies while Odin Force is active basically hits everything with lightning around them. That's really good. It's really, really good, especially if you're holding a right trigger and doing the big slam with your Y button, which you put into this build quite a lot, then you get a lot of damage out of it. Actually, I think you press Y and then press the right trigger before it slams down to save a bit of the force. But it works really well. It really does put this one on. For the middle, what I've gone with is intrinsic specialization. Takedowns grant 30 points of intrinsic Odin Force energy. You're doing takedowns constantly. The other two are performing a perfect dodge. Nope. Increase the maximum amount of intrinsic Odin Force. That one is really good. Really good. This works better in this build. You're doing takedowns over and over and over. Over on the right hand side here, we've basically gone for this one. Increase the automatic regeneration speed of intrinsic Odin Force energy by 12%. Nice and easy, it does it itself, it just regens a bit faster. I love that one. And finally, intrinsic overcharge. Left hand side, we're going down here and we're going for lightning field. While overcharged, surrounding enemies will be intermittently struck by lightning. I love this skill again. Keep that one on. Middle, just down the bottom here, increases heroic energy regeneration when Odin Force is overcharged by 10%. Now, as you saw, we're already going for that Odin Force basically overcharged state most of the time. This is best in slot for that. Right hand side, just up here, increase all damage by 15% when Odin Force is overcharged. Again, you're going for that. Stick with it, you'll do a bit more damage. It works really, really well. It really does. So if you look at the gear, basically we've got one bit there that is going to do our shock damage and one bit there that's going to do our pim particle. Now if you want to know why that's kind of essential, it's because our range damage is quite awful as such. It's not good, but we still get good range damage, and if you're wondering why that is, it's because of how the game sets it up, basically your positive and negative statuses. So if you have a little look, the one we've got is shock and pim. Now the three statuses that are positive are plasma, particle and cosmic. The negative are cryo, shock and gamma. Basically, if you hit one when one is affected with the other, you do more damage. We are not going to go into that too much in this build because this build is more about takedowns, but you still want it on your build. This allows your ranged attacks to actually still do quite a bit of damage, especially when they shouldn't, because our range rating is awful. And again, once they're hit by pin particles, then if you get that shock effect on them, you'll get more damage again, and vice versa. So it's well worth chucking something like this on your build. Now finally, because I know I've taken a little bit of time, but this is quite an intensive guide, some of the moves that I would recommend in this are light attacks, so XXXXX, that will give you a lot of extra damage because you obviously had that on your gear. And then there's this one just over here, which is really, really nice. That's basically why. Nice and easy to remember. And another one that is really, really nice is this one just here. If you just wanted to hold Y and do a really big ground pound with your hammer, then that does a lot of damage. It does even more when you hold RT, and it kind of chain effects. It's really worth doing. Another one that you can chuck into the mix, because we've got on one of our ISOs I believe, would be this one just here, executing a spin move. So basically just hold that and then keep holding it a few times after. So if you have a little look here, I believe you do it 3 times in a row. Hold X, then hold X once that first one's finished, then hold X again, and it will finish off the combo. Right guys and girls, I'm sure I've taken enough of your time, but like I said, I think this is a really good Thor build. I've not really seen many great builds out there at the moment. That's why I put this together, because all of the builds I saw are basically, when I look at them, they're just chucking every single thing out of defense. I've seen most of them are around about 700, 750 defense rating. That's all well and good, but you're not going to be doing any of the real big content with that defense. Your health will just not be high enough. I would say if you wanted to lower your defense by a lot and put up these two, I would really recommend trying to fit somewhere into your build something like a Jarvis shield, which is really, really good. But again, I believe that's based off of health, so have your health higher than your actual armour. I may have got that wrong, I'm not 100% sure because I haven't run one for a little while, but I believe that's how it works. But again, like I said, I hope this has helped some of you out. Give it a try, let me know how you get on with it, let me know if you've got a better build, because I always love finding that stuff that I don't know. And as always, if you're not subscribed, why not hit that like button? If you like the content, why not hit that subscribe if you'd like to become part of the Sofa Squad? And of course, I'll be bringing you regular Xbox and soon Xbox Series X content. As always, guys and girls, Thor out, Sofa Star out, take care, see you on the next day.